Welcome back to the Taproom Exclusive. I'm Dean Zarbaugh. I am here at Masthead Brewing Company. We are now talking about the Midwest Red IPA. This has been a really successful beer for you guys. You guys won a bronze medal, was it 2 years ago? In
2017.
And then this last year you got a gold.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that, by the way. And talk about, first of all, just getting the bronze first, because you guys were not even a year old at that point?
No, not quite.
And so that's huge for a brewery that young to get in, start getting into those medals.
Yeah, it was a blast. I mean, I can't say enough good things about GABF and the Brewers Association, how they operate the event, how they judge the event. I mean, there's over 8,000 beers being judged now, so it's an incredibly difficult task to get enough qualified judges, and just the sheer amount of beer those guys have to drink now is pretty crazy. So definitely appreciate those guys, and they're not getting paid or anything. They're doing it because they love it.
Yeah, because of the passion. And so it's a red IPA. So you got bronze, and then same recipe pretty much.
Yeah, we adjusted it a little bit for we adjust things roughly yearly based on hop quality and even malt changes a little bit. It is an agricultural product,
right?
So we're always trying to adjust things just a little bit and just keep the quality really high. But the same category, the category is double hoppy red. Which and if you read the description, it basically is red IPA. Is roughly what it's describing. It's one of my favorite styles. We've been probably homebrewing this beer since 2012.
Oh wow!
I really like the style. I think it's balanced. I think the malt backbone with some really dank, good hops just goes really well together. It's super drinkable, and there's just a ton of flavor.
Yeah.
And the beer highlights two of my favorite hops, which are Idaho 7 and Mosaic. But the GABF is just a crazy experience in general because you're just drinking nonstop for 4 days straight, and the awards are on Saturday morning.
Yeah, and
you're invariably incredibly hungover in a room with a bunch of other sweating hungover brewers, like all farting and just it's just an insane room to be in. So when if your name gets called, you stand up. I almost passed out, I think, when I stood up. But, I can't imagine a better feeling. And it's, definitely one of the standing up on that stage is a thing that is very honorable to me.
Oh, yeah.
To be honored that way and to get to fist bump Charlie Papazian. Yeah. Something I think most brewers dream about. So I feel very lucky and very fortunate to have a good team of guys helping me out make the beer and to get judged really favorably. And
to do that within your first year, and then you come back the second year and go from bronze to gold. I mean, that's incredible.
We couldn't hope for anything better. We had already struck out on all the New England styles we entered. So
really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
There are a massive amount of entries.
It's a huge style category. I get that, but that's still weird to me.
So it was pretty good to get to see to get to go up there for that one.
And like you were saying, that's a style I like. Not a lot of people think malt and IPAs really should necessarily be as paired like that as they do, but that's something I like. I like the balance on that. I like malt.
Yeah, I think it harkens back to some of the old school Midwest IPAs with some of the newer West Coast hops. And I think as long as the malt isn't overbearingly sweet,
right? If
you dry the beer out enough, it works really, really well.
Yeah, I like the style. That's one that I've told people about. I like trying stuff that's won medals, not to I like to try it for myself, see what the medal is from, and see how it came to win that medal. And the Midwest Red, you don't see a ton of red IPAs on the market anymore. It's a style that you just don't see a ton of.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I think in some ways, often people get they see a word on a label and it maybe turns them off a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think red sometimes is a little bit of a bad word because it's such an in-between thing where it doesn't totally appeal to the hop heads and it also doesn't appeal to the people who are super into dark beer. So I think that's sometimes it's sometimes difficult to get people on board with it, but I think anybody I sample out with this, especially if they like hoppy beer, end up really liking it.
Yeah, because it does still have that nice hop-forward flavor. It just has a nice malt backbone to finish it.
Yeah.
And, if you wanted to eat with it, what would you say you would go with as far as the food aspect goes?
So I think I like something. Something a little bit simpler because there is so much flavor in the beer. So I think a margarita pizza is really going to pair well with it. I think some of the herbaceousness from the basil brings out some of the hops. But I think you go another direction. You could also go with the Newski bacon because kind of maybe what I said in one of the other episodes is that sometimes the fat from the bacon just really, really brightens the hops up, and the bitterness kind of cuts through that. So that can be a really nice pairing as well.
Yeah, and like you were saying about red kind of being maybe a turnoff to some people. What do you say about the word rye? I find like I've tried to recommend someone like a rye IPA.
Oh, rye is the worst word.
They're just like, oh no. I'm like, no, try it.
Well, I think there's a couple misconceptions because rye when you use it in beer isn't as spicy as a rye bread is because the caraway seeds are often what makes it spicier.
Okay.
It's not the rye itself. Which is actually a cool experience. I was in Iceland over the summer and I got to try their traditional rye breads. They're freaking delicious, and they're nothing like ours because they don't have the caraway seeds in them.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a really unique character, and yeah, it is kind of a dirty word now. And I think part of it's because in the early 2000s when people were making beer, they didn't have as many ingredients as we do today. So to make a beer that kind of was a little off the edge, they were using rye as one of their ingredients. But I think sometimes people maybe think that all the beers that have rye in them are going to taste like the rye pale ales from that time frame when they just had Cascade and Centennial hops and rye. And
it's one of those things where people just put the preconception in their head, and then it's like with all the other stuff is like they already have this idea of what an IPA quote unquote is going to taste like, so maybe they don't want to try. And it's like, open yourself up.
Yeah, like, sometimes it's good to give things a chance.
You never know what you're going to find. Like there's tons of beers out there that I never would have known I liked had I not just set like the jalapeno IPA. Yeah. Like I don't normally eat jalapenos, but that's something I was like, oh yeah, I want to try this because I want to see how it works. As fun as it is to experiment with stuff with you on your end of it, actually putting it into the beer and all this, it's fun for me to try the stuff and experiment and take myself out of my comfort zone. And I really credit craft beer for changing my palate as far as beer and food goes.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, it's something that don't knock it till you try it because I can't write off a whole style just because I've had one beer that I didn't like.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I feel like that's a trend these days with a lot of consumers. Is like, okay, that one, whatever it is, I didn't like it. Therefore that style is bad.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's partially motivated just because we have so many options now. There's so much out there that there is always something new to try.
Yeah.
But I also think going back to something that maybe you didn't like the first time, your palate develops too over time as well, and your palate changes, and maybe you start out not liking things as bitter, and eventually maybe you're going to like more bitter beers. So I think in general, it's always worth revisiting a style or revisiting a beer and. At different places, and also just getting to see different brewers' interpretations of the style is a really fun activity for me when I go to other breweries. Yeah,
absolutely. I can only imagine, like, for a brewer to go and try other people's stuff, how kind of fun that could be to just see what all is out there and kind of put it up against what you do yourself.
No, it's great. I mean, we find ourselves, when we have a short day or something, going over to Noble Beast or up to Hofbrau and drinking those guys' beers because, we drink our beers every day anyway, so it's fun to, go up there with the other brewers and try some other people's, different examples of styles and different ideas.
Life's too short to drink one beer.
Absolutely.
That's how I feel. I do a segment on the show. It's a newer segment I came up with called Between Two Hops. It's like the interview section at the end of Inside the Actor Studio. I don't know if you ever watched Inside the Actor Studio growing up. I did because I was a nerd. So some of the questions are the exact same questions. Some of them I've come up with myself. But this is just a fun little segment I've come up with to do. We'll just get started. What's your favorite style of beer to drink and to brew?
To drink right now, it's probably Pilsner.
Okay.
I get blown out with all the giant beers that we make often. So it's just nice to come back to drinking a Pils, something a little lighter, something that takes a lot of brewing prowess and technique to do really well. You can't really hide many flaws there.
Right.
To brew, I've been really having fun with Double New Englands and some of the bigger beers. I think they're they're actually very challenging because since the style is so new, there's not a guidebook like there is for some of the other beer styles out there.
That's true. I never thought about that. What's what on the other end of it? What's your least favorite style to brew and to drink?
Least favorite. That's a little bit harder.
Because beer's beer. Beer's good.
Yeah, that's difficult because I like beer in general.
And it's not saying that the style's bad. It's just maybe something that you don't normally go to.
Yeah, I think some of the lighter American ales, like an American Blonde or something in that range.
Yeah.
Because if I'm drinking a light beer, I'd rather it be a lager. And likewise with brewing a light beer, I like brewing light lagers. But light American ales, I'd rather make an IPA or something with a little bit more nuance.
Yeah, I agree. I get that. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Ooh.
Man, some of these are going to get...
Yeah, this is getting deep.
Yeah, we're going to get deep here. Oh, this is just the beginning. This is only question 3.
Maybe underwater welding.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
You ever read the comic book Underwater Welder?
No.
There's a comic book called Underwater Welder. It's written by Jeff Lemire.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because it's like the Twilight Zone, but underwater.
Yeah, just crazy stuff happening.
Really crazy stuff because it has to deal with air, how much air he has and stuff like that. So he starts seeing things.
Yeah.
And it just starts really getting weird. So that's just weird that total
That's
coincidence.
awesome.
But yeah, Underwater Welder by Jeff Lemire. I think you would like that. What profession other than your own would you not like to do?
Anything that's involving like drawing or any sort of like fine motor skilled art. Just not very good at it.
I'm not good at it
I
either.
love appreciating art.
Yeah.
Like my girlfriend's very, very artistic. I'm a little bit more, left brained.
Yeah, I can't. I draw stick figures.
Or is that right brained? Whichever one's sciencey.
I don't remember anymore. I used to know that one. I think you were right the first time. Which hurdles did you personally face in opening the brewery, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so in general, people think all it takes is just making great beer and having an aptitude on the brewing side, but you don't get to even do any of that for like the first 2 years when you try to open a brewery. You're going to banks and trying to get loans and writing a business plan and doing, managing construction project. And I think it was just the most difficult part was that we had a new challenge almost every month, and it was something that none of us had really tackled before. So it was like teaching yourself an entire new skill set, like every month for 2 years or something.
Because this the idea for this place came about like 2012 or so, right?
Yeah.
So it's not an overnight thing like most people think.
Yeah. It's there's quite a bit of the business side that, even once you have the brewing kind of locked down. And even brewing, I'm always learning new things, and I think you'll find most brewers saying that they feel like they don't even have that locked down after years in the brewing industry. But managing construction was definitely pretty difficult.
I can only imagine. What is the most interesting trend that you saw in 2018?
In 2018, I think the 2 ingredients that I'm seeing trending the most were vanilla and lactose.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that was like really unique where you're having a lot more big dessert beers and vanilla being added to different fruited IPAs and different things. So that was something I didn't, and I don't know if that any trend most people see coming per se, but I definitely didn't see that coming, but I think there's some beers with those ingredients that taste really awesome. So it's pretty cool.
It seems like it's kind of just the next step in New England's. It's like the next step of evolution in that style. If you had to pick a least favorite trend of 2018?
I don't think that I have a least favorite per se, but I do think that sometimes some of the more classic styles are being completely forgotten in lieu of some of the styles that just involve putting a lot of stuff in beer.
Right.
And that's sometimes just a little bit difficult to come to terms with as a brewer because a lot of us like the simplicity of like a great Pilsner or even a great West Coast IPA. So, that can be somewhat challenging. But at the same time, I mean, it is nice to experiment with some of the newer flavors that people are wanting to drink.
Yeah, like every once in a while, I like coming and just getting a nice American light lager, a craft American light lager, and just to have a good old beer tasting beer.
Yeah.
And, but then there's times where I want that palate wrecking IPA.
Yeah.
I just want something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just depends on my mood. What is one piece of practical advice you would give to someone starting out in craft beer?
As a drinker, as a brewer, or both?
Both.
I would say definitely drink as much beer as you can, and I mean, be responsible about it.
Right.
But in terms of variety, so you can open up your palate to the widest variety of flavors, I think that's really important. I think developing your palate is going to be the best tool, especially as a brewer that you have.
Oh yeah, that's been the fun part for me is seeing what I like, seeing what I don't like. If you could send a message to yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell the younger you?
10 years ago, how old was I? I would probably say, switch into, biochemistry or food science, or, don't torture yourself in double E.
Give yourself a little leg up when you get into the beer side of things. What or who has been the biggest influence in your brewing career?
So I'm gonna have to go with two people on that. Jerome Welliver was the founder and owner of Black Box, and him giving me the opportunity to work in the industry and giving me a lot of flexibility was definitely really significant for my development as a brewer. I think it was really important, and I can't thank him enough. Masthead wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Black Box.
Yeah.
And then I also think, I learned a lot about brewing from Jamil Zainashev's podcast.
Okay.
So he has a podcast on the Brewing Network, Brewing with Style. And that was I think really important to kind of learn different approaches to brewing different styles of beer and what you're looking for and what good examples are. Because
you can sit down and read a book or something, and then that's just the one perspective on.
Yeah,
on
there's no
industry.
Discussion in a book. Whereas if you have four guys who are really acclaimed brewers discussing a style, I think you learn a lot more about it.
Absolutely, that's how I learn anyway. I learn from people talking about it or doing. I'm not a big learn by reading. I have to experience it.
Yeah,
and I think that people who like that are great in the craft beer industry because you've shown how to do something and boom, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so future plans, you guys just hit the 2-year anniversary mark. What do you got coming up in 2019 that's got you excited?
Yeah, I think we're gonna experiment with kettle sours a little more. We did one
nice.
For the anniversary, and that was pretty fun. So I think we might do a couple more of those. We want to do more barrel aging in general. That was something that, as we grew in 2018, we couldn't do quite as much as we would like. But now we have a few more fermenters, and I think we're going to have more flexibility to do more of that.
Oh, nice.
And I think just keeping the quality high.
Yeah.
Always pushing forward on the quality side of things and consistency side of things to make sure people get a great experience every time they come in or every time they open a can of Masthead.
Yeah. Midwest Red, double GABF winner. For you guys,
and that I think should be hitting stores in March, so
and that'll be in
soon.
Cans.
It'll be in cans, and then we'll have it on draft as well.
That's the next seasonal. Is that for you guys?
Yeah, so that'll follow up jalapeno.
And what was it? Real quick before we go, what was it that made you guys decide to do 16 ounce cans over 12?
I personally like 16-ounce cans.
I do too.
I like getting a little more beer per each open.
Yeah.
So that was part of the motivation. And then also, we saw a lot of the breweries we respected out in the Northeast doing the 16-ouncers. So kind of said, let's give them a try.
It's a nice trend, and it sticks out on a shelf, too, especially with all the other 12s.
Yeah, it gives us a little differentiation on the shelf. I think there's a lot of times there's a sea of 12-ouncers.
Yeah.
So we've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are doing an awesome job here. Thank you again for taking the time to allow me to come down here and talk to you about the beer. And
hey, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and tune in next week for another all-new episode of the Taproom Exclusive.